Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to the Retro Classic Movie Show. And it's been a while. I've had a hell of a week. So is my co-host, Mr. DJ Anubis, all the way from the Metal Tavern Radio. We've been working like crazy. There's not been a lot of content on the channel for a while, but what a better way to bring some new content to the channel than bringing you the latest retro classic movie show. And this is DJ Neko's pick. She suggested this one when we had our last retro classic movie show, which was Predator. So if you haven't seen that one, check it out. So this is your pick, and of course it is the one and only Tremors, which is a guilty pleasure of yours, I believe.
Yes. So, when did it come out? 1990, I think.
Yes,
I was a
1990.
kid, and it was on HBO or something, and my girlfriend and I caught it, and we were hooked. I don't know why. We loved movies that, lots of action. We loved horror movies. We were really into Nightmare on Elm Street, but we watched Tremors about a billion times. And, we're like 10 years old at the time. I don't know if you ever see kids now. I mean, it's not as popular, but they used to play like the floor is lava, or they'd climb off a
Mhm.
thing. We used to do that when we were kids, but we were hiding. We were running from the Tremors because you couldn't step on the floor. And my
Yeah.
mom would come downstairs and go, "Why are you climbing all over the furniture?" And we're like, "Don't touch the floor. The graboids will get you." And she's like, but my mom is a big Kevin Bacon fan, so by the time she saw Tremors, she was like, "Ah, all right, it's a good movie."
Mm. Yeah, it is. It's for me. It's a movie that came. I think it might have been like a movie that no one kind of, had any idea or anticipation for,
Mhm.
knew the reaction it would have. But who would have known this? I would guess I wouldn't say low budget, but I would say medium budget for its time. Um, a horror action comedy, you could class it as, would spawn, like, for me personally, the ultimate B movie franchise,
Mhm.
because obviously this must have done reasonably well for them to go ahead in a few years later do a sequel. Then there was even that one-off television show, and then obviously I think it's up to 6 direct to DVD, or should we say streaming now, sequels.
I think they're talking about
So
another one.
yeah, or I heard a reboot as well. So it's done.
Yeah,
It's
they've
done.
been doing a lot of movies, and Bert, Michael Gross's character, he's the one that keeps reappearing in all these. So he's like the guy that carries the
Yeah,
torch.
yeah.
And
He's
I,
like
I think for the
yeah,
reboot or whatever they're going to do, Kevin Bacon is supposedly going to get involved in it.
Why
yeah. Well,
not?
he was a big. He was the one that really pushed for the show. So, and he's wanted to do, like, I think because, as you know, with the 80s and the 90s and all these classic franchises, they either reboot them or do a reimagining, or they do these legacy sequels that are, like Halloween, for example, 2018. It was, it was a completely spin off from the first one. But what they did is with that is the first one was the only one that was connected, and then they had like these legacy sequels that like were continuation. So I
Kind of
hear
changing the
Kevin,
story.
yeah, I think Kevin Bacon's idea is very similar to that, where the only sequel that will match the time frame will be the first Tremors. And so his sequel will be like a different continuation, which, it's the new normal, I guess, that the
Yeah, they do it
Hollywood
all
are
the
doing.
time.
Hmm. So, can you, DJ Anubis, remember the first time you seen Tremors?
Yeah. So I remember the trailers for this, and it's been a while, but like I remember just seeing them and then going, "This," because I was really into horror a lot, especially back in the '80s and early '90s. So I went to the theaters to see this, and like I was kind of surprised how much comedy was inserted into this. but it really made the movie really a lot of fun because it's both like action and horror at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember specifically going out to see it because I remember seeing the poster and it was like Jaws only on land, you know. So I really appreciated that they were doing this, and so yeah, man, I enjoyed it a lot. Just didn't expect there be as much comedy as there was, but it really made the movie work.
I also did say the comedy was inserted well. It wasn't like a forced comedy. It was more like, you know, sometimes irony is funny. So you're like, it's just crazy. Like,
well, and they had really good chemistry with Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward. Like those two guys, like they just. Sometimes it's hard to get that chemistry with actors that have to carry it, like a buddy team, like, you know, like buddy cop type stuff. And so that's what they were able to do.
Well, my first time seeing Tremors was via what you've just said, how it was Jaws, not in the water, but under the ground, in the sand and the soil. And like I think I've mentioned this a couple of times when we've done these, is we had a video store in my local area called Zodiac Videos, and what stood out with me, and I begged my mum to rent it, and it was the fact that I seen the cover. So the cover alone is terrifying. Like that thing coming out the ground, and you've got these characters, and you know that obviously that's the thing that comes out of the tongue of the graboid. It's not the actual graboid itself, because that always confused me, is when you're finally seeing the reveal of the full-fledged graboid, how it didn't look like the cover. But then I quickly realized is what you're seeing on the poster isn't the full-on graboid. It's like the tongue, that one of the three,
one of the extras.
Yeah, what I call like the Ghidorah tongues, because they're kind of they look kind of like King Ghidorah-ish from Godzilla. So it kind of, you know, it could have been heavily influenced by that. But that was my first experience, and like yourself, I found myself laughing at this more than being terrified by it, because I did found it like one of them cheesy, goofy, but fun horror comedies that it was more about the humor and the connection of the characters and the horror element, but it was fun nevertheless. So let's talk about Tremors. So Tremors is a 1990 American monster comedy horror film directed by Ron Underwood, produced by Brent Maddock and S.S. Wilson, written by Maddock, Wilson, and Underwood, and starring Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, Finn Carter, Michael Gross, and Reba McEntire.
I think it was her first role.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've never seen her in anything else. So,
which one was that?
Reba.
Yeah,
she had her own TV show.
Yeah, she's
for a while in the States, and I'm trying to think. She's done like Lifetime.
She's been
like
busy.
TV movies,
but she's not someone you think of as like a big movie star.
Because she's a big country star.
Yeah. So,
did you mention Finn Carter yet?
Yes, I did. Yes, it stars Finn Carter. Yes.
So just interesting thing about her is like she only did about 5 movies overall.
Really?
But this is what's funny. On July 30th, 2019, she's 59 now. She was arrested in Las Vegas, Nevada, and booked on 1 count of possessing a stolen vehicle and 14 counts of possessing a credit card without a cardholder's consent. So she's a bad little girl, man.
Wow.
Yeah, on July the 30th, 2029. She was 59. Carter was arrested in Las Vegas, Nevada, and booked on 1 count of possessing a stolen vehicle and 14 counts of possessing a credit card without the cardholder's consent.
I wonder if
charges
it was like a husband or a boyfriend's cards and car that she took.
Yeah, probably.
Both charges are felonies. Prosecutors have 90 days to file a criminal complaint. Carter was released from custody by a justice of the peace with the promise to return for an October court date. So
I wonder if that ever happened.
So she went from the girl next door to a criminal. What can we say about that?
To orange jumpsuit.
Orange is black.
Yeah, and you're right. She's made 1, 2, 3, 4. She's made 5 movies in her entire career as an actress. So there we go. So who would like to start this film off? Where do we begin?
I'll start, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds like we're in some kind of meeting. I guess I'll start.
Well, a couple of things to point out before we roll on to the plot. Michael Gross, who plays Bert, he's like this. He's Reba's husband in this movie, and they're like, they're, what do you call them? They're the preppers.
Yes, they
so,
have
like,
all the guns and
conspiracy theorists. They think that the
he's like, I
government's
bet you're
watching
glad you're in
Big
my
Brother.
house now.
Yeah. So he appears in the rest of the film series and stuff like that, but also Melvin, the young punk who always plays the pranks. I found out that his character also appears in these later films as well.
But he's not the same actor, or
No, he's the same actor.
Oh, okay.
Because Melvin doesn't die in that film.
Yeah.
So
He almost did.
yeah,
Yeah,
his dad died.
Yeah, Melvin makes an appearance in the 3rd film and the television show.
But yeah, so basically what you have is Kevin Bacon plays Valentine McKee, Val for short, and then Fred Ward plays Earl Bassett, and they're like handymen working in Perfection, Nevada.
It's really funny. Fred Ward, every time you see him he gets so stereotypically cast in every movie that he's in. Just
Joe Dirt.
Yeah, like he was in Joe Dirt as the dad. He was the dad in the movie Sweet Home Alabama, like just like kind of Southern, I don't know what to call him, but
yeah, it was kind of weird because you would think at the beginning of this, when they meet Finn Carter's character, the college student who's watching all the
seismographs
and stuff, you'd think that they were trying to push for her and Earl to kind of hook up because they were kind of having that connection first, but then it ends up being Val and her towards the end. But anyway, Val and Earl are handyman. They go around, pick up trash, do like hard labor for people around the town.
Put up fences. I mean, it's stuff that a lot of people, you can tell it's like very
Delaware.
Remote, struggling town. They kind of like get $40 for their day's worth of work. But they want to get out.
Yeah.
So there's Kevin Bacon and there's Fred Ward. So
Kevin Bacon fresh off Footloose.
Yeah, so these two are basically the lead main actors, and this is your ragtag of other actors in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal favorite,
Yeah.
yeah. And how crazy does Reba McEntire look like?
They were great chemistry there with them too.
And you know what? She suited the role as well. She suited that role.
Yeah, there's a moment later on where Earl, no, it's actually Valentine and Bert, they get into this like disagreement about what's happening, and they have to be split up and calm down. And Reba's character is like, it's okay. He thinks he knows everything. It's like this under the breath type sarcasm that she's throwing out there. So it works. I love how when stuff, just minor details like that with characters is a really fun one. And she was a singer going into this, so it's like she did a really good job with that role.
And I like that they treat this like everybody knows this is a monster movie. It's a little campy. It's a little silly.
It should be known it was practical effects.
It was practical effects. They were great. Yep. Every actor in this is not out there throwing the camp to like an extreme level. They were treating it. I mean, like,
they had fun with the comedy, but it wasn't like campy comedy. It was like just stuff kind of like sarcastic comedy.
I mean, what would you do if you saw a graboid coming out of the ground? You'd scream, and it was good. I think everybody had, again, for a smaller budget film, they only have one place to shoot. They used this town and the desert really, really well. That the desert itself was almost like its own character because you were afraid of the ground.
Absolutely.
But anyway, these two guys, they're handyman. They get kind of tired of their job when like they're cleaning out the shitter stuff and it like explodes on them, almost like Men at Work type stuff. But They decide they're going to leave
the
for
septic
Bixby.
tank.
Yeah, they're leaving for Bixby. They're done. They want something more to do than this. So they don't get tempted by a woman willing to pay them $40 or whatever to do something else. So they're like gone. And so as they're on their way out, they come across one of those electrical towers out there, and there's a guy they know from the town up there just hanging out, and they think he's drunk and passed out. So Val goes up there to get him, and he realizes that he's dead. Like, he has a shotgun with him or a rifle, and he's just dead. So once they get him back to their local doctor, the doctor says, "Oh, he just died of thirst, dehydration." And so
they're like, why could he not climb down? What made him
Right.
sit up there for so long?
And so that begins like the mystery.
They reckon
like,
he'd
why?
been up there at least 4 days. So
Yeah.
he clearly was up there hiding from something for 4 days, and they just assumed it because he must have been blottoed, he must have been coming down off the drink and just didn't realise the drink or whatever and got stuck or whatever, and they don't realise he was up there because he was frightened for his life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nice little detail. It gives us the opening to Tremors. What is this? Why are we doing it? And it also kind of forces the guys back into town.
Well,
It
it does, but they still kind of start to leave, and that's when they come across this guy Fred, who's a shepherd. He has like a bunch of sheep, and the sheep are being torn apart, and they're looking around because they can see the aftermath of the sheep, and then they finally come to Fred's hat, and it's in the ground, and his head's there, and they all freak out. They begin to think it's like a serial killer out loose, like trying to harm people.
That was the great thing about this right at the beginning. You establish all the main characters. They're like your local townspeople. You then have this mystery going on about, stuff. And it's like it doesn't take long to get into the plot, but it is kind of like a real kind of, in its own way, a nice slow build up to when everything's finally revealed with the graboids. So like you said, you've got them, they've had enough of being in this small hick town. They want to get out, probably make something of themselves, and obviously they go to do that when they come across all these events that are transpiring. They then suddenly zoom past to go out of the town where they had met these construction workers, and prior to them, I guess, after they see the shepherd's head just lying there under the soil, they warn these two construction workers, guess what? We think there's a psychopath on the loose. He's cutting people's heads off. You need to get out of here, man. All this, and just as that transpires, the next thing you know, you hear like the tremoring of the sand and the rocks
in the gray.
And one of them,
the guy jackhammering, and he punches through and hits, I guess, one of the graboids, making it bleed. And that thing takes off, and of course, I like the other guy though. After Earl tells him that there's a psychopath, like the one guy jackhammer's like, this dude's a fucking lunatic, with the other guy is like going back to the truck to get like a crowbar. He's like, just in case,
Yeah, and then obviously he gets his leg trapped and he zooms off down the road because he's caught in the. You haven't had the reveal of what the graboid looks like yet, but it's dragging him along the roadside, and it takes him up and over kind of the mountainish area, and then the other guy with the crowbar goes to go look for him or to, try and help him, and that's when there's like this avalanche that brings the rocks down, and he's clearly crushed under the mass of the rock fall. And this is when they end up going back to the town.
Yeah, they get that stops them, right? They couldn't get out because it.
Well, they were there to let them know about Fred, because then they do end up coming back out, and that's when Val's like, we waited a day too long to get the hell out of this town. And that's when they come up to the avalanche, and they can't get out at that point.
Yeah. So obviously they've now warned, and I look, when they're in the actual town, it seems to be the meeting point, the local like convenience store.
Yeah,
the Bronze. If you're watching Vampire Buffy Slayer.
The what? Yeah. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah. So apart from the two main characters in Bert, obviously this
I
guy.
love that guy.
Big Trouble in Little China, baby.
Absolutely.
And Golden Child, too.
Yeah, I love him. He is just awesome. And he's like, he comes across as like this little, quick
I
grab
think
for
that's
money.
Victor Wong.
Victor Wong, yeah. He wants to kind of make money. He wants to like get ideas and cash it in and all this kind of stuff. And then you have that the young kid who's a bit of a prick who just plays pranks on people all the time, who's constantly in the store.
Yeah, it was the boy who cried wolf, though.
The boy who cried. But yeah, I don't blame him for kind of being, the way there's nothing really in the town to do. So what
That's
else can you
true.
do
Nothing to do
except,
except
be
piss
a
everybody off.
yeah, and a troublesome little prick of a child, basically. So after that point, obviously, I think this is when they had to come across the psychologist lady yet.
Well, they did that earlier, and she's asking them about like if they notice any earthquakes or anything like that, because she doesn't understand that there's something else going on.
Yeah, she was like, I'm getting these readings, but they don't make
and
sense.
that's when actually Val was kind of like, he's like, before they even pull up, he's like, she's gonna be blonde, have big tits,
green eyes,
right,
long legs.
he has this like perfect girl that he has in mind, and of course she turns out to be like your girl next door, which she's still cute.
She had her
but it wasn't what he
sunscreen on
was
her
expecting.
had her sunscreen on her nose. She was really cute.
But yeah, they end up going back. That's when they run into the avalanche. And as they're turning around, the truck gets stuck. And Earl thinks that Val's got them stuck in a ditch or something, but Val's like, nope. And he breaks loose, and they get back to the, I don't know, what would you call it, market, I guess?
Yeah, it's like
It's like
and that's when
store.
they come out, everyone thinks, well, they can't be back by now. They went to go get help, but they shouldn't be back already. So they come out and they see that this thing is latched onto the axle of the truck. It's one of those arm things you were discussing at the beginning.
Yeah, the grabber kind of, the tongue, it's like a tongue, the mouth tongue.
Tongue with a mouth.
So then they get this bright idea, all right, we'll go to Brigsby, the next town, but we can't get over there with vehicles. So that's when they end up going on horseback. But prior to that, you cut to this scene where you've got this couple who have just set up like their kind of caravan area in the car.
The doctor, yeah.
Yeah, and they're just sitting there, they're enjoying the night sky in the desert. They've got the radio on, they've got like this, power pack that's, powering up the mobile home and stuff, which suddenly, stops working. And they go up to the soil, and this is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where he's like, look, it's disappeared, and then he's trying to dig it out of the ground when suddenly, like you say, the face, the tongue with the teeth comes out, grabs him, and he suddenly gets sucked under the ground, and he's stuck under his wife's trying to help him. She then runs and goes into the car to escape. And suddenly you just hear that hustling and bustling of the sand behind the car. And it's slowly by the back end getting dragged underneath the soil, which must show you the strength of what the graboids are capable of.
Yeah, we find out they're pretty intelligent.
I think they learn as in whatever area, and
as they kill people, they learn.
Yeah, and they adapt to the surroundings. And there's that one shot when you see, I know it's like an animated shot where the car must be getting tipped up and it's getting forced underneath the ground. You just see the front headlights of the car go up like a searchlight and just disappear, which I thought for its time and for the budget they had was quite a decent shot.
I think it is too. I mean, I think you have to realize, and people nowadays, you can animate and CGI a lot, and you can screw up CGI to make it look like a cartoon, but in order to get these monsters to be alive, you had to build it. You had to, puppeteer it. You had to be able to make the monster. And you guys keep making a really great reference to Jaws, because you don't see the full reveal ever until the end. Like, you just see pieces and things, and then the full reveal comes much later in the movie when you realize you're not just dealing with this little thing, you're dealing with like
Yeah, they were
three
thinking
big
like eels or
things.
something. Like, well, there's
The
got to be
thing, it's
something much
like a
bigger than this.
mutated, undiscovered snake or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Which,
one thing I will say, if you go back to the year prior to this came out in 1990.
mhm.
If you look back at the year before 1989, you had the original Tim Burton Batman film.
Mhm.
So that, if you remember that film, that had a mixture of obviously special effects for its time. It had all the great costuming, but it
Mhm.
had a lot of great hand-drawn scenery, which they put the actors into, and it had a
Yes.
lot of animated shots that were created for the film. I always remember the very first shot in that movie with Batman, for example, where he's looking down at the city and you can just see him, and there's like a big light in the background, like a big doorway. And as he turns, you see the cape turn with him and he goes through the doorway. That was animated.
No, I didn't know that.
So it for me, it's a great way for its time to mix in animation with live action and special effects. And even right at the end of the movie, when he's standing on like the end of the building, on like the edge of the gargoyle, and he's looking out, and you see his cape blowing in the wind, Michael Keaton. They then flash the Batman logo, the Batman like sky sign, and that was animated next to him. So, like you say, this was just one of them shots in the movie that had that kind of effect,
Impact.
and it
Yeah.
worked for its time. So that was great for its time. So moving forward, they're on the horses, and this is, I think, when you first see the full-fledged graboid.
Mm-hmm.
It's when they're heading off on the horses to Bixby. They come across Wallace and his wife, which was the name of the doctor, because as
Mhm.
they're heading to Brixby, they can hear the radio in the campsite with the automobile, the home, the mobile home, and they
Oh yeah,
can
the
hear
TV radio.
and they can hear the music from the radio, which they were all listening to the night before. And they're having just a search around, they can't see nobody, and they look at the soil, and that's when I think the graboid comes out, like the snake.
No, that's they uncovered the headlights.
Oh,
And
of the car,
yeah,
yeah.
and then they take off because they don't understand like what
How did the
exactly is
car
going on.
get into the ground?
So as they're running back on horseback, they're like, we're not going to stop. We're just going to go through. And of course, the horses get wind of these creatures because
And
they
they
can
get
sense them.
scared.
And one of the graboids grabs Earl's horse and knocks him off. And then that's how they discover, oh, they come out of the ground. That's how they get you. And so they
Which is why when
start
I was 10
running.
years old, I was jumping up on the furniture
They
because they come out
start
of the
running
ground.
towards an aqueduct. And as they jump across, it's made out of concrete. So as they jump across, the graboid hits it and the concrete breaks free, but it basically crushed its skull. And they can see it, just fall apart in front of it. It's got this big mouth with three tentacle-like,
Tongue
snake-like.
arms.
Yeah. So it's very nice, cool design too. Go ahead.
This for me personally was probably when I thought, like I say, it's an action comedy. They said it was horror. For me, that was the scene prior with the car being sucked into the ground was quite, for its time, creative, and brought tension and showed you, how powerful these graboids are. But for me, it wasn't until that scene where they're galloping off and the horse gets killed. And you see
fast. They're so fast. Like,
and
for something that large, it's like it's swimming through the sand almost like you would see a dolphin swimming through water, like so fast that they can, because you think of sand, you're like, it's thick. Even just like if you were taking a walk in sand versus taking a walk on
Well,
pavement.
what I thought was cool is Rhonda, played by Carter. If you put up that picture again, Kevin, you can see on the backside there's like these little black horns.
Oh yeah.
And she was describing how those kind of push it through the sand. So it's kind of amazing that with those little things it can cruise that fast.
Yeah, I do believe though, which is proven by the fact that it hit the wall, for even though they're large and they're powerful, if they're taken out of the element, they're very weak, or if they come across things that are obstacle, it's quite dangerous for them. Like you see, it went flying through that concrete and it basically cracked its skull. We know how we'll get to the end when we know what happens there. But they do, I think, because they basically are these fat prehistoric like worms that all do have a weakness as well. But if you're in their territory and if you're in their element, you've got no chance against them.
Yeah, I think they're technically blind, but they feel vibrations and talking and stuff like that.
So he has another picture of the graboids, which this is during the production of the film. So there you go. There's a huge, that's for me, it's just an amazing look at the practical effects that they took to bring the graboids to life.
Who did the special effects for this? Did you say that yet or no?
No, not yet, but I can have a quick look.
I'll look it up.
Because if you look at this, I mean, you see the wires behind it. Like, that's what's giving it, you know, its action, its movement.
Yeah, the creature for Tremors were designed by Amalgamatic Dynamics. The full-scale graboid, seen after being dug up by Val, was cast in lightweight foam. It was placed in a trench and buried and dug up again to archive the desired used effect.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, Bait Elephant.
Anthony Allen Barlow, Bill Basso. There's a few of them part of that crew.
Yeah.
That built it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot involved with that.
I mean, this is the movie. Like, the capability to build this, make it look, I mean, I hate using the word real, but if you would imagine a large prehistoric worm type creature underground, they made it move the way you thought it would. They made it scary and they made it look natural. Like, it's not looking like an alien. It looks like this could have possibly been living out in the desert for a really long time in the middle of nowhere. And boom, now it's made its way to this teeny tiny remote town and basically destroyed it.
Yeah, but for its time, that's an amazing creature design. And like you say, back in the 80s, 90s, especially the early 90s, prior to we seeing Jurassic Park, it was all arranged. And, you know, you've got to give it up for practical effects because, and I believe, you know, I think that's what's missing from modern days Hollywood. It's all...
I do too.
Yep.
I think sometimes they
all full on CGI. And I do know that Alien Romulus, that's coming out the next Alien film. The majority of the aliens that you'll see on screen will be practical effects. They've went back to the originality. And I read an article with James Cameron. He's seen Alien Romulus and he said he's absolutely loved it. He goes,
wow.
He actually said it goes back to basics.
The feeling like
the first couple of films.
So, and that's obviously making me more excited to see it.
I think sometimes, like, we've watched behind the scenes of, like, let's think of a big one, like Avengers or any of the Marvel films, and they're doing 90% of everything in front of a green screen.
Well, some of that stuff you understand, like the Monsterverse and stuff like that, or even -1, it makes sense. Like, unless you're going to do the suitmation that, you know, Toho used to do back in the day, unless you're going to go that route, you got to rely on CGI. But
you have to do CGI, right? Like, we've seen there.
Clash of the Titans was horrible.
What was that movie with the head in the back of the woman's? It was supposed to be
Malignant.
Yeah, Malignant. I hate that movie. It's so stupid. But all the fighting scenes were CGI and they were terrible. And I think like Blade 3 was a lot of CGI, and I was like, this is bad. Like, the fighting scenes, they
yeah, I mean, Dracula was totally CGI, I think.
So
But
that's
it wasn't a very good design anyway, but there's other good things about that.
Mm.
so I feel like with the technology we have, sometimes it is cheaper to CGI. So they just
Mhm.
CGI the shit out of
Well, that's
everything.
why they do it. They
So why not, like, if you are going to make, I mean, a lot of, think of the Lord of the Rings. I hate the movies, but you cannot deny all the awards they won, all of the amazing creatures, how they made things look the way they did. They did the right blend of CGI and
Mhm.
practical effects. And
Planet of the Apes, the recent Planet of the Apes trilogy, they have special effects in there, but how they were able to do the special effects justice for them is they had Andy Serkis, like he did with the Lord of the Rings, doing all of the motion capture, and they have the dots on your face so they can actually put the image of the character all over his face, which is better. And they even did that with like King of the Monsters in 2019. They had even the motion capture actor was at G Fest, which is TJ Storm, was it?
Yep. The guy with the long hair.
He is the MonsterVerse Godzilla. So he basically does all the motion capture for Godzilla. And I believe this year at G-Fest, the motion capture actor who does all the motion capture for Kong is at G-Fest this year.
Oh, that's cool.
So
they did that with that cartoon that I love, Happy Feet, the little penguin cartoon. So it's a tap. I love tap dancing. I've done it since I was 4 years old. And Xavier Glover, who is actually Danny Glover's son, he did the full body suit and did all the motion capture for that animation, so that it looked like, what was his name, Mumbles or something, was tap dancing.
But the reality is like, for big extravagant films, so take Avatar, Godzilla X Kong, that
King
makes
of the Monsters,
sense.
yeah,
that makes sense. But when you're doing smaller things, so like you brought up Alien Romulus, you don't want to use most CGI. You don't want to do that. So
also,
it makes sense to go.
It's due to the setting of the film. So if it's set in a dark light, you've got more chance of practical effects looking more realistic. So, for example, if it's like, I know it was all in the dark, like pitch black. I know that used a lot of CGI, but the CGI looked realistic because it was all dark lighting, where they could have used more practical effects potentially in that film with the lighting aspect of it as well.
I don't know if this show is still on TV, but we were watching. It was kind of like a CGI versus practical effects challenge, almost like a game show. And do you remember I mean, it was just a short-lived thing, I think, on Sci-Fi Network, but they were trying to do, you have to build up a scene, and this person was doing practical effects, and they wanted to do webs, like for a giant spider, and they figured out a way to like use a hot glue gun and the string, because if you've ever used a hot glue gun,
the one where they use like a fan.
Yeah, so they had a hot glue gun and like a high pressured fan to make the webs look like they were spitting, and CGI could not create it as good as a hot glue gun and a high pressured fan, because it looked so realistic, like it would be a spider spitting out their webs. So I find like we all are saying, something as simple as a hot glue gun and a fan can make a better effect than if you're going to try and animate it.
Absolutely.
All right, where are we with this? I'm sorry, we love our tangents. Where are we in the plot? What's happening?
We've discovered that it's a giant worm with a bunch of little tentacles in its mouth. Rhonda comes across them. They start talking about that it's a new type of discovery creature that's out there, but she also informs them that her seismic readings have shown that there's 3 others that exist, because they were all at different locations while making these readings on her seismograph. So they hop back to town. Of course, they first figure out that in order to get to her truck, they have to stay out the dirt to lose dirt. So there's these big boulder rocks that are kind of placed out in this
the pole
mountainous area, and so if they stay on the hard rocks, they can't get to them. I guess they're just too big and too far down the ground for them to kind of maneuver around. So they go start pole vaulting. This is after, but they first had to spend the night. And this is when they discovered these things will wait you out, which explains our first guy up in the electrical tower who decided not to come down because they would still be there waiting for him. But the next day, Rhonda comes up with the idea to use these long bamboo poles that are just randomly out there.
Just randomly bamboo in a desert.
And then starts pole vaulting from one rock to the other till they can get to the truck. And then they get in the truck and they go and they get back to town and explain to everybody, this is what's happening. We have 3 more of these things.
Yeah, well, it's actually Kevin Bacon's character while they're in the store trying to explain everything, and he looks at the seismograph. He realizes via the locations of where each seismograph happened that they're getting closer and closer to town. And everyone's talking very seriously about how bad this threat is, except the store owner played by James Wan. He's more obsessed with naming the damn things. He's like, let's call them
name of it. We discovered
snakeoids. They're gonna be snakeoids. I don't know, slugoids. And I've got it. We'll call them the graboids.
I do like you brought it up earlier, like when they first had the tentacle attached to the axle of the truck. Victor Wong's character, he's trying to he wants to buy it off for $5 or something like that, or 15, and they're like, well, they narrow it down to like 10 or something. So they give it away, but then he starts having it where he can take pictures with it for like $20 or something. And he's like, man, he really got us on that one. He really thought it out. And Earl, of course, makes the plan like, well, that's because he's always thinking ahead, Val.
We have a plan. Remember, he's like, we're planning.
So this time they had this big ass thing, and they're like, we're not selling this for measly $5.
Yeah, and
you got to tell him your favorite part.
Oh yeah, so over the course of years, there's always been certain things in movies that stand out to me, and I use quotes from. One of them, of course, is from The Professional when
I ain't got time for this Mickey Mouse.
Gary Oldman's like, I do not have time for this Mickey Mouse bullshit. And the other one,
but wait, he said that to me for years, and I hadn't seen The Professional until recently, like maybe a year or two ago, and I was like,
she looked right at me and said,
that's where you got it. So anyway.
So in this one, there is a point where after the graboid smashes its head into the concrete of the aqueduct, Kevin Bacon goes, well, fuck you. And that, I say that a lot too. So now everybody picks
with
up
the finger too, because he does like this little swirly finger. And my parents have picked that up too. They think it's hysterical that anyway, that's just like his favorite part.
It's amazing those certain quotes from films that end up staying with you for your whole life.
Yeah.
So I would never imagine Tremors would be one film.
Right.
That's what brought us together.
Famous
most random things.
But yeah, so after that happens, when they are in the store and they figure out they're heading, this is when I think things start happening where the graboids start heading into the town.
Oh yeah, and the freezer starts acting up again.
Oh, you got the little girl and her little pogo
that's
stick.
right. I'm sorry, the pogo stick first.
Yeah, the pogo stick incident happens where she's back because she's got her headphones on, and I think she's trying to break like a record of how many times.
Like 600. I'm like, dude, I'd be tired.
I can do one. One.
So she's bouncing, and then you've got that little prick.
Because they're going, "Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she?"
He's trying to scare people with the already, just the attached snake head.
Yeah.
He like jumps out at them at one point, and he's like, "Oh, it's got me, man! It's got me, man!" And Bake goes, "Someone's gonna punch you in the goddamn mouth one day, boy," whatever he says. And
I think at this point they were out trying to canvass the area, so they were kind of searching around. But the rest of them are all there. And when Val and Earl get there, they're telling everybody, "Well, we got to get up on the roof or get high because these things they're just starting to burrow around the house or these buildings, and they're trying to get in through the floor."
Yeah, and then him who had the snake, the attached snake wrapped around scared bird. originally, and all of them pretending that they had come alive and grab. He goes outside and he's sitting there and he's playing with his basketball. The basketball suddenly gets sucked into the ground. You hear him scream, like you said before, Neko, boy who cries wolf. And they go out and he's like, I'm going to kick his ass. He goes outside, they beat him up, and then he sees him like up the telephone pole. And he says that he says his jeans have been ripped open and he's got blood stains on his leg, and he's like, oh shit. And then they run back inside, and then they say, oh, they're here. Next thing you know, you hear the pogo stick bouncing, and they realise, and then Kevin Bacon's character Val goes running across the road and grabs her, basically spears her off the pogo stick. You suddenly see the pogo stick get sucked into the ground and then spat back up. And that
was good.
That's another great effect. They suddenly, the mother and the girl run back in their home. He runs back into the store, and you just see like the building shaking.
You can tell too, like these are just like stick built rickety buildings. There's no foundation at all.
Unless you're Bert.
What? Oh yeah, unless you're Bert.
And so that happens, and then things quiet it down, and then later on, and this is the best kill in the film. This is where you see the full effect of a graboid when it grabs you. Is when the freezer goes off and it's shaking. You've got Bert and you've got Val and you've got Wong trying to, stop the thing from shaking, and then all of a sudden, because all on the floor of the store, it's just wooden pallets, and then under there must just be the soil, the natural soil that it's built on. They suddenly crack open, and out comes this graboid, which grabs, unfortunately, Walter, the poor bugger, and he gets swallowed. And he
there's his Quint moment.
It's his Quint moment.
Yeah, and that for me signified like how dangerous the graboids were, because initially you had seen little bits and pieces, but we hadn't actually seen the full effect.
We haven't seen a kill like that.
Yeah, so that was the first full-on kill from a graboid.
I love too, like when they were underground, and you know how they had like the decking out front, like, and you see the like decking like.
Oh yeah,
yeah, you can see them underneath of it in the woods, just like kind of like
a wave.
It's kind of wild. I don't know. I think that is excellent. Eye to detail, just little things like that. You're like, okay, what would this thing do if you're running? Of course, you're built on sand. You don't have a foundation. Of course, the wood planks are going to just fly up. Of course, they're going to be able to just bust through, even though you feel safe because you're indoors, but there's nothing underneath of you except for sand. So of course they're going to bust right through. They feel the vibrations of the freezer going on the fritz. It's just nice little eye to detail for whoever wrote this little story. I mean, it's just, again, it's what, 90 minutes. It's a quick, scary, funny, interesting monster movie, and that's the best way to. And like you said, like it has spawned so much. It is the original Sharknado spawning of.
That's a good point. That's exactly what I was going to say. This was Sharknado before there was Sharknado. And this became the ultimate Boy B movie franchise for monster fans and monster.
So,
when they stopped doing
Rotten Tomatoes say about Tremors.
Oh, let me see.
Because that's you'll see, like, if you look at Sharknado, critics are giving it like whatever, but like people are like 90%.
I think even at the time it was pretty well received. So yeah, it's critics are 88% and audience is 75%, which is a little low for audience. I think this movie's way better than 75%. But
but it just proves like you can take something. This is what Sharknado did 20 years later. Think about it.
And that was CGI heavy, where this is practical effects heavy. But like you say, he unfortunately meets his untimely demise. The store's now fucked. They cannot really do anything in the store. It's they can't hide in there, so they all end up on the roof.
Yeah.
So there they all are. And my biggest thing I used to like about this is she's where the water barrel is, which has got perfection on. Which
Mhm.
is nothing really perfect about this town, is there?
Yeah, the situation's not perfect. It's fucked.
Mhm.
Yeah, but look at that
And
scenery.
Yeah. It's like
I think the only thing they managed to get is a radio, which is really good because
yeah, it's a
after
CB
the
radio.
radio, this is where these two
Here they
characters
come.
into their own.
Yeah, so
Because
they're getting back to their house up on the hill a bit, and it's a nice little compound with a fence and concrete foundation, and I think they're by the truck, and that's when Reba's character, Heather, she gets her binoculars, sees that everybody's on the roof. So they start calling over there to see what's going on. And of course, Val and them get their CB radio from inside.
Oh, that's right. He had to like hang off of the roof to grab the CB radio.
And so they start telling them that, you know, because at this point, Bert and Heather don't know exactly what they're dealing with. They just know about the arms. They don't know about the entire thing. So Val and them are trying to tell them, like, look, one's dead, but we had 3 more, and they get you from the ground. So they're telling them, get on your roof, yada, yada, yada. But, you know, Bert and Heather are down in their little basement there, and they've got such an arsenal. It's like a heaven for any kind of guy that wants like weapons galore. But they also have like, I don't know what the hell that bullet thing does, but it starts kicking in. I don't know if it crushes them or something, but it makes a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden the grab boys are flying towards their location. And of course,
they're like, get on the roof, get on
Val's
the roof.
like, hey man, they're coming. You guys got to get up on that roof, man. And they're like looking through windows, like, I don't see shit. Just like they're under the ground. They're under the ground. So finally, one of them breaks through their concrete basement, and of course they start firing. They're just throwing everything.
They got everything at.
Yeah. There's even a mention later where Bert says, "Oh, where'd you get these little fuses from?" Oh, my cannon. So,
what I also thought was really, I just want to jump back to like the CB radio. You have to think where they are. Everybody there has a CB radio because there's well, this is the 90s, so no cell phones, no telephone poles. Did you see? There's no telephone poles. Everybody has their own well and septic because that's the thing.
They had electrical towers, but I don't know what that was, if it was just for power.
That's for power. There's no phone lines. You could see there were no phone lines. They had the power, and some of them had generators.
Mm-hmm,
like it was like gas generator.
Doctor and his wife did.
I mean, like this is the middle of nowhere, which kind of adds to like the scary feeling because they kept saying like we're in the middle of nowhere. We need to get real help from a big city, and it's over the mountains. So how are we going to get there? We can't drive our cars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's kind of interesting, and I loved the fact that everybody had a CB radio because there are no telephones.
I remember those days.
I mean, what do you think they would have to do if they had to make a real phone call?
4 pagers too.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they're firing on this creature that's in their basement, and finally Bert pulls out his elephant gun. And that's actually in the picture you had too. So he pulls out this big ass gun and finally puts a hole in the mouth of it, and it kills it. And so they're celebrating. They're, because Val and them think they're dead. Like they can hear the gunshots. They're like, oh my God, they're not going to be able to kill this thing. And then they finally get it. Everybody celebrates, and then Val's like, well, be aware, there's 2 more.
That's one thing I like about this film is like during that scene where they're on the roof, like on top of the store, all you can hear is the gunfire from the top of the hill, and all you can hear. So it just sounds like an all-out war battle going on in the background.
And they're sort of like.
And then when it goes quiet,
they hear them going like, oh God, so they're thinking, oh my God, they're dead.
Because it goes silent.
Underestimate Bert. You underestimate Bert.
Underestimate Bert and the elephant gun.
Like for me, he's like the Ash of the Tremor series.
Yes.
He's like the Ash of the Tremor series. Like he's got all the guns. He's got a he's got a wacky personality. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's like has a no shit attitude. Any weapon you could think of, he's probably got in the back of his van.
He has a cannon.
So they kill it, and they get on the roof after they've been told that there's a couple more, and of course they're trying to shoot through the dirt, but you can't penetrate to the dirt to get to the other two. So he's like, can't kill him from up here, man. We're going to have to figure something out. So Bert's making these like homemade pipe bombs out of those fuses I told you about with the cannon. Meanwhile, everybody in the little town, they're trying to think of a way to get out of it, because those like most of them, like we find Melvin's dad, who ends up dying because he's on top of his mobile home and then gets tipped over and tries to jump on a tire. That doesn't work out very well. So then they come up with the plan. They're going to get one of those big tractors they have that they push all the trash with, and they're going to take the little truck loader or whatever, the track loader, attach it to like a trailer that's not being used for a semi, and then they're going to get everybody on board and go. But they have to be quick, because these things are smart and they start to dig underneath you, and they're going to try to sink it.
And there's one thing I want to mention that we have mentioned. There's in total, I think there's been 4 Tremors graboids. So you had the first one that they had the hint of, which had attached to their truck, which ripped one of the tentacles, the tongue jaw tentacles off. And then you had the other 3, which slowly get wiped out. So
actually there's 5 altogether.
5?
5 sequels and 1 series.
Oh no, he means the actual worms or whatever in this film.
Oh, there were 4 worms, yeah.
Yeah, so the first one got killed when they chased them and went through the concrete. Bates killed one. That leaves 2 left, but the main one, who's the intelligent one, is the one that wrapped its
Stubby.
one of its. Yeah, it lost one of its
tentacles,
tentacles chasing there. That's the final one. That's like the final boss, the main graboid in the whole of the film, which I thought I'd mention, which I thought was a good kind of other plot point, that the first one you like get a glimmer of is the last one that's left.
Well, he's kind of like the brains of the thing, because obviously when they finally go ahead.
It's like Starship Troopers, where there's that big bug at the end. That's the brain bug controlling all of the other bugs. Yeah, I love that movie. Sorry.
I was thinking more like the raptors in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So you had 3. Yeah. Or in the first Jurassic Park, you had the big female, and there were about 4 raptors, I believe, in the film. But they killed one of them, and there was only 3 left. And she would experiment in the compound to try and get out. So she was like the smart one.
She figured out the door, and
so that's how I looked at the last remaining graboid.
Yeah, so as they get their tractor and everything up toward Bert's house, they pack them in, get moving. They've got some guns and stuff they took with them, and they give Melvin one, but it's not loaded because the kid's freaking out at this point. But they decide that they're going to head up to the rocks, the mountain part of the rocks, because they feel safer up that direction.
Yeah.
And
with Melvin, though, with him, he'd probably blow his own fucking foot off.
Well, that's why Bert didn't load it. He's like, you think I'm dumb? I'm not going to give you a loaded gun.
Yeah, and there's that dialogue as well with Bert when him and Reba McEntire, his wife, I think her name's Jennifer in the film.
Heather.
Heather, are going, leaving the compound in the truck, and he's like saying it took with this long to build it. It's reinforced. It has a bomb shelter, and it's went to shit, basically.
Yeah, and so they start heading towards the rocky part of the mountains, and they see the graboids, like the last 2, and they're kind of just making noise around them. They're like, there's a point where Val's like, well, that's okay. They can do all what they want as long as we're over there. But they don't understand that these things are actually plotting something, and so as they're driving along, all of a sudden the front loader just crashes through the dirt, like they laid a trap, a sand trap.
Oh, it's exactly what it is. They're trying to like distract.
Yeah.
They basically dug a ditch, so when the front loader goes, it literally went into the ditch. So basically it trapped them. to trap them. So
now they start running for the rocks, and they get there. But this is kind of like where that little beef between Bert and Val comes up, because Bert's like, we could have stayed at the house. We had food and everything else. You brought us all the way out here. And so there's like this back and forth for a little bit. But there is a point. This is like probably the key point of the last part of this film is Bert's like, you know what? If I'm going to die, I'm just going to take one of these. I'm going to walk out there, let it take me, and I'm going to blow that fucker to smithereens. And that's when Earl goes, that's not a bad idea. Of course, you're thinking he's wanting Bert to kill himself, but that's not really what he was thinking. He's like, no, I want to fish. So they get the little rope and lasso it. And I think it's Val's the one, or maybe it was Earl.
I think they both did it.
So Earl or somebody throws it out there, Graboid takes it, and boom, gone. So now they're happy. They're like, okay, we got a plan.
The only downside is when the Graboid got blew up.
Yeah.
They were covered in shit.
Yeah. It kind of looks like the stuff you'd pull out of a pumpkin at Halloween.
It does look like, dude, I would love to know what they used, because you're right. It looks like a pumpkin. It looks like a pumpkin that was exploded. So if they exploded a pumpkin off camera and made it like, that would be amazing.
So now we have Stumpy. He's the one that's left, the brains up the operation. So
Stumpy is his official name?
That's what they called him, Stumpy. So they get another bomb ready, toss it out there. It's actually kind of funny. Stumpy takes it, but much like the pogo stick, kicks it back out, and it comes right by the rocks where they're at. So they're all running, like they're just gone. They start spreading out.
Stumpy's
Most
learning.
of them go up the other part of the rocks, but for whatever reason, Rhonda, Earl, and Val go out into the sandy part of the area. And of course there's a blow up, but no one dies. But Stumpy, using his smarts, knows what happens from his friends. So
he's learning.
Now I think prior to this, there was, I guess Val had another pipe bomb with him. So they're standing there, and of course they got to be careful, because any movement they make is going to draw Stumpy to them. So he decides on a whim, which we find out at the end, is he starts running in the opposite direction. No rocks, nothing. He starts running, and Earl follows him, and then of course they pass by Rhonda, who also starts running. So Stumpy's chasing them down, and
but don't forget the reason that when they got chased, they suddenly stopped.
Yeah,
and he came out of the ground. Stumpy actually came out of the ground, and when he came out of the ground, he went back underneath, and this shows how intelligent he is. And they were going to go walk back to the rock, but Val's the one who realized it's a trap. If we walk forward, he's going to come and grab
dumb.
because he ain't dumb. And so because of that, he knew they were trapped. Yep. So he had this idea to run towards, I guess, in the other direction where he had seen a cliff. But this goes back to the very start of the film.
Yeah.
Back at if you remember the first interaction between Bert and Val, Bert's asleep in the back of the van. And obviously he must have been a bull herder or something in his past, Bert, because Val's...
Earl, you mean, Earl.
Oh, Earl, sorry. Earl is there. And the next thing you know, he's trying to wake him up, because it's morning time, they've got jobs to do. He won't wake up, so he shakes the truck. And he's like, stampede, stampede. And he jumps out of the truck and nearly shits himself. And then he's like, they have this conversation and they mention how, stampedes and, they must have been trapped in one at one point. And right at the end of the film, he gets this idea and he runs towards like the end of this cliffside. So he runs and Bert follows him. Follows Val. She's not gonna. I think she would have just stayed put, but they have I think a lighter in the hand or something.
She had the lighter.
Yeah,
and it should be noted that the first time they tested a pipe bomb, they threw it, and when they exploded, it sends like a shockwave to the ground, so it scares them. And so the tremor, the graboids would run opposite direction of wherever this bomb would go off. Like it hurts them in some way, like their ears or their sensitivity. So go ahead. Yeah, that sets up the final part of it.
Yeah. So Val ran, Bert ran, and then she runs, and then obviously Slumpy's heading straight after them. But then he doesn't know that there's a cliff at the other end. So just as he gets to the end, Val kind of dives out the way, and unknown to the graboid, it comes bursting out of the soil at the other end and falls to his death. And there's just this massive, beautiful explosion of guts and gore, and it's the end of the graboid.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful scene. You know, boom.
See ya.
So it's just a beautiful scene. And then right at the end, as they get back to the town, and that's where Val and Rhonda end up kind of hooking up at the end, and everyone kind of goes back to a peaceful life. And that's the end of Tremors, which for me, like I say, it's the ultimate. You know, it's cheesy. It's I'm not going to say low budget. I'm going to say medium budget for its time. It's cheesy horror comedy at its finest, and it really was, like you said, it really was Sharknado before there was a Sharknado. And you know, it was. I definitely believe it was heavily inspired by monster movies of its past.
Yeah,
you know,
agreed.
with it being having the desert setting, I do believe it could have been inspired by them. You know, the giant ant movie, because you don't know when they were developing this, because there's no real backstory until the later films where the where the graboids come from. Because
I think that's sort of the appeal of it even back then, because it was a horror film that came out and kind of surprised audiences. Like, it did very well. Like, I don't think it was really expected to do that well, but it just ended up being like a very big hit. And now it's more like a cult classic, but you know, it really resonated with people because it was a fun time. That's what everybody went into.
And there's only one hint where they're talking about what they could be. Like, there's that conversation before they get the giant bamboo sticks and they try to hop along, that they're talking about where they think they come from. And I know Val's like, oh, there must be experiments by the government. She believes that they're like prehistoric, undiscovered giant worms. And then I think it's Earl goes, well, my money's on them from outer space. Yeah. So even back then, there's no real hint of where they come from until they built the lore up in the sequels. And
I think this movie really didn't need it. Like, because it's introducing the monster, and that's probably why, like, down the road, they're like, okay, we've seen them over and over.
Success too, because whenever you have something, so think of, you brought it up, Pitch Black. That, I don't think that was meant to be, even though it's based off like a series of graphic novels or something. It wasn't really meant to be something that was going to be a series of itself, but because it had such success at the time by itself, just as like a small big hit, it gave Vin Diesel a character he can use later films and do more films with. So whenever you have a film that does that, Candyman or whatever, like, it's going to spawn sequels. Now, if it's something that tanks, no one's going to care unless you're Full Moon. They do everything anyway because it's all B-rated stuff. But I wouldn't.
It's like any film, it doesn't matter what genre. If it's a film and it's meant to be a one and done and it makes more money than they expect, or it makes reasonably money, they'll sequel the hell out of it. Now, look at the likes of, like, and if you look at the action film genre, John Wick was a one and done. Look at that now. It spawned this Prime television series. It's got 4 films deep. It's got, spin-off films. Liam Neeson's Taken, that's had 3 films. It had a television show spin-off. So in Tremors had a one-season television series. So if it makes you money, they're gonna, they're gonna fucking cash in on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what would you rate Tremors? We'll go with DJ Neko.
What is our scale, out of 10 or out of 5?
I
Or
usually do 10.
10.
oh, okay. I am going to give Tremors an 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. DJ Anubis.
I'm surprised she's so low. I'm 9 out of 10 on that one.
Wow.
Well, I'm gonna go even lower and give it 7 out of 10
Wow.
because
Yeah,
I
I
do
think
enjoy it.
I kind of understand it because the movie's a little dated. It's still fun, but it's a little dated. It doesn't age as well as quite like Aliens or something like that.
Yeah,
But
and I think it'll just be older fans and people who are fan of monster movies that will appreciate it. I think
Yeah.
if a lot of modern fans or a modern audience might not enjoy it or understand it, I think it's people who were born with it or grew up with it, or like you say, or like we're huge kaiju fans, monster movie buffs, so we appreciate it for what it is. And like you say, we've mentioned it a few times. If the people who like the things like Sharknado will appreciate it, or even there's even a new like B movie franchise that's from Asylum that seems to be taken over, which is the Ape movies. There was Ape versus Monster, Ape versus Mecha Ape, and now there's Ape Ape X Mecha Ape New World Order, the third film.
That's funny.
So
I think sometimes too when I start rating things, I kind of, your ratings can always change on multiple rewatches, right? I always take into consideration like something if I know I could pop it in at any time, and it's like, I mean, I'll give you an example. For like a 10 out of 10 for me, it includes the rewatchability that like I could watch over and over and over, but it is also an excellent film, is The Departed, right? Like,
oh yeah.
So I am thinking like, okay, my 10 that has the rewatchability is The Departed. So when you take Tremors, I can't possibly give it, I have to give it a little bit lower because this is, not a
I have
Scorsese film.
older films that I can rewatch a lot, but this is one where I'd rather just watch it maybe then like 2 or 3 years down the road, rewatch it again. Like if I'm just not doing anything and it's on
Yeah.
streaming app. It's not something I seek out to watch.
That's
a
my
lot.
thing too.
So
Is it's not one of my. I did it when I was 10 because
like
all we had was HBO.
-1 like countless times more than I will watch.
Yeah, like I watched Tremors this afternoon to prepare for this.
Yeah, we watched it the other night. We rented it on Amazon Prime.
Oh, you see, it's free on Amazon Prime in the UK.
What? That's some bullshit.
It's crazy. But there's films you probably can get free that I've got to pay for. Like when we did the retro classic show with Fat Samurai Guy, and we did Rambo, I had to pay for Rambo off Prime. So I don't know if you had it free, but I had to pay for it.
It depends on regions. We tried to watch something recently, and it said this film is not available in your region, because there's a way on our Roku streaming device that you can just do a like overall search through all of the apps, and it was something we wanted to watch, and we clicked on it and it said this is not available in your region.
Yeah, I hate that.
I do too.
So such a hassle.
So like it is all regional sometimes, where like, maybe the UK region has it for free, but we don't, or like, you actually have it available and we don't.
Like my biggest pet peeve is I've got Pluto TV here in the UK. You've got it in America. Obviously, the American version has the Godzilla channel.
We do.
We don't have that in the UK.
Oh wow!
Oh no!
So we do not have the Godzilla channel.
We also have it's a Fist of Fury channel too, where it's all like martial arts.
We don't have the Haya app that obviously Samurai is always promoting with Rick Myers.
Well, we don't have that here.
And we recently, I think it was only last year, we got Shutter.
You
Obviously,
just got Shutter?
we
We've
don't have
had it for 10 years.
we don't have HBO Max, and the reason
Oh,
we
wow,
don't have
that's right.
HBO Max is because our provider called Sky, they have a channel called Sky Atlantic, and they have a 10-year deal with HBO. So any programming that is from HBO Max premieres is available on Sky Atlantic.
So
But
you have to wait for it to come to Sky Atlantic?
yeah,
Any of the movies or any of the shows?
it kind of comes out the exact same time. So, say for example, Game of Thrones that aired an episode on Sunday because of the time difference. You're we're 8 hours, ahead of you. So it'll be on Monday evening. It would debut in the UK, not the Sunday. If that
So
makes.
let's see. This was Neko's pick, and before that was the fans. They picked Predator.
Yeah. So now it's your pick.
It's my pick.
Oh,
Yep.
shoot.
So I
Because
think we should do. I think we should do Duel, the Spielberg movie I was telling you about. I think we should do that.
I've never seen it.
It's good. It's one of his earliest films. Not many people talk about. Most people know about it.
Oh, wait a minute.
Kevin's
Is that the truck one?
Yeah.
Okay, I've never seen it, but one of the podcasts that I listened to, the Fortress Film Society, they recently a few weeks ago did it.
Yep.
And yeah, it's one of Spielberg's first movies, and they were talking about it, so it made me want to see it. Yes, I know of the movie, but I have not actually watched it.
Quite funny because I had a feeling that was going to be your pick.
How?
So
well, he sounded very, because we did our top 10 Spielberg movies, and when I brought that one up, he had never heard of it or seen it. And so I said, well, I think it's something that might be up your alley, so it's something you should check out. So now's the perfect time to do that.
And isn't it a good thing I watched it last night?
Did you really?
The front door. So now I have to watch it.
See, now I have to wait because I don't want to know anything on your point. I want to just be
fresh for the next one.
Did you rent it or did you buy it?
I actually watched it on. It was on. What was it on? It was on a free streaming.
It might be on Shutter for us.
It's called. I think it was something. It's similar to Tubi.
Okay.
I think it's something called All UK, something like that.
Cool.
It's something that I discovered, and I actually went on Google, where can I watch in the UK? And it said on this app. So
yeah, I sent him a link from Tubi or from YouTube, but didn't realize it's in Spanish.
So you're gonna need the subtitles.
Well, no, I can. I'm sure we'll find something. If I had to rent it, I will. Maybe even buy it because it's got to be dirt cheap, dude. I can get a Blu-ray for dirt cheap.
But the funny thing, this is the problem with these older movies. They don't always get these releases.
Right, but the older movies are better than a lot of the other ones because the newer stuff that they're putting out, and that's where the region code comes in. And it's like sucks.
But that's where like places like Vinegar Syndrome and all, they buy these old movies and re-release them themselves. Yeah. But some of these older movies have never made it to DVD.
They can't either get the rights to it or.
And in the UK, we've got something similar. I don't know if you get it, called Arrow. Arrow Video. They do a lot of these, like they do a lot of foreign content, or like they did like the Mr. Vampire.
Shout Factory does a lot of stuff like that.
They did them. So, but anyway, folks, you've seen it. This has been Tremors. This has been the Retro Classic Movie Show. What's your rating of Tremors? What do you think of the movie? Have you seen it? If you haven't, give it a go. But like Mr. DJ Anubis has said, when we do this again, the next Retro Classic Movie Show, we are going to be doing Duel.
I love how he had it ready. He knew it. He had it ready for you.
Great minds. Great.
He might have been trying to do a review on it before I mentioned it, so you never know.
Well, I wasn't going to do a review, but if you hadn't chose this when we did the next Cinematic Synergy, it would have been my next pick.
Gotcha.
Or if you had picked something else for this, I would have made it my next Retro Classic pick. But there we go. This has been the Retro Classic Movie Show. I hope you've enjoyed it. But Mr. DJ Anubis, what have you got coming to the Metal Tavern Radio.
So we're going to be kind of like quiet for a while. I know you and I have got some stuff next Wednesday for Shogun with Thrash Pondo. But next week we're doing MDS, so I'm gonna try to get some footage during that, just so because Deco and I will probably do a review after it's all over.
We decided to do something a little different this year. We used to do all 5 days, every venue, and we noticed that first of all, it didn't feel as special as it used to, because when we first started doing it, it was literally only like 1 day, but then it went to 3 days, and now it's 5
and we
days.
had a lot more people coming in from out of the country and stuff too at the time, but now it's like we have one guy coming from Pennsylvania. But it's a good friend,
and we're happy to have him. The problem is, like,
it gets tiring, man.
Gets
like at my
tiring.
Age, that's a lot of music.
You don't like enjoy it as much. And there were times where we weren't even like watching the band. It's so loud. It's outside. We're in the parking lot just having snacks and drinking beers at the car instead of in front of, because we've been out there already for so many days and it's hot and we're sweating.
Yeah, we're not quite built for those.
We're older now,
but we picked certain days, and you know, we have certain bands. Like we did an interview with Norman Skinner, who is the singer of the Forbidden band now. So we get a chance to see him for the first time and meet him, which is going to be really cool. But yeah, you know, we're going to be doing a lot of that. But I think tomorrow, maybe later tonight, I might go live again with the gameplay for Diablo 4. But tomorrow, I think Neko and I might do some trailer reactions I haven't got to before we jump into MDF. So, but for that entire week, it's going to be kind of quiet on the Metal Tavern front.
Well, from the entertainment headquarters, coming tomorrow, I have the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes review coming, and I've got a guest coming. I've got Jad, the film critic, joining me.
Oh, very nice.
It'll be his first appearance on the channel. I also have a unboxing video I'm working on that will be hitting the channel.
Your presents?
Yes.
I think I know what it is.
So I have that coming, and then Wedding Day this week, we have the Shogun review coming with me, myself, Mr. DJ Anubis, and Thrash Pondo Pons. And just like you guys, I think if I get the time, I will be doing a few trailer reactions of a couple of trailers that have just recently dropped. And later on, the following week, I won't be available. I'll be doing nothing much that week, just because I won't be in the UK. I will be in Romania.
Oh, very nice.
I will be doing my personal blog there and, you know, recording all things Dracula when I can find them there. So that's coming to the channel soon. But
that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I need a break. I need to get the fuck out of England for a bit. So
yeah, need some downtime.
Yeah, enough of work, and it's time to play. But you know, it's been fabulous having you two on again. This is welcome anytime on the entertainment headquarters. This is your home away from home. And like I say, this has been the entertainment headquarters. This has been DJ Anubis, DJ Neko, and we'll catch us all at the next one. And just like he said about me, subscribe to the Metal Tavern Radio. There's some great shit on there. If you like your heavy metal music, look at his, he does all these album weekly releases and his favorite. And of course, he does his amazing movie content. And recently, something I've really enjoyed, check out his Tarantula blogs. He has an amazing
tarantulas.
He has amazing tarantula collection, and it's really fascinating to watch. And the information he drops is always interesting if you want to learn about it. So get yourself over to the Metal Tavern Radio. But from me, from DJ Anubis, DJ Neko, we'll catch us all at the next one.